So, can I get your attention? Let's start. Okay. So someone said, if you are not networking, you are not working. I can see some people who cannot hear me. You need a headset to hear me. That's why. Thank you. Okay. But how to leverage your presence in the networks? And this is our topic today. How to get the best out of your presence in your networks, considering your own objective. What are the tips and tricks you should know about considering your own objective? Are you all in networks? Yes. Do you all know why you are participating in those networks? Yes, that's great. So we're going to work on those specific objectives and to come up with the best tips and tricks you should know about considering that specific objective. So it's going to be in two steps. First of all, we were very curious about how people use networks. So we've done kind of a little survey. There has been like close to 400 respondents, which is quite good. We've done it for 10 days now. So there's going to be like an insight on how they use that networks and why. And after that, we will do a group discussion. Each group will be focused on one specific objective, and the idea is really to come up with concrete, actionable, easy to use, ready to use tips and tricks. All right? So my name is Candice Blois. I'm French, sorry. I'm from Capgemini Consulting, and my job is to design and facilitate collaborative approach for clients to boost their transformation, and I'll be the moderator of this session. Please meet our sponsors. This is Catherine Ladouce, who is the head of communication of Lenovo. Catherine.
Thank you, Candice. And very pleased to see, huge audience to attend these tips and tricks, to really leverage the network and the networking activity. And thank you to the team of Capgemini Consulting. We make us, the sponsor to work quite a lot to prepare this session. And why we are here, so Lenovo is partnering with the Women's Forum since, I think, 9 years now. And we were interested to sponsor the Connecting Hub and really to engage the discussion regarding the network. Why? Because we really can consider, well, in our companies that network is key. And of course, it's really part also with our technology. With what we are offering, of course, it's really we are providing the tool to network, also that is really the principle. But beyond the technology and beyond the offering, I think it's more, personally, I created a network 15 years ago, which is a French network with women in technology company, and we have a lot of company present here as Orange. We are part of this network because I always consider that when we are part of a minority, because by the end there is really an issue of gender balance, in our in our environment in technology, it's really good to be all together and to exchange, to share best practices and so on. So that is really the first reason why we are here today, and we are supporting and contributing to the discussion with the delegate of Lenovo. And the second reason is also for our company. We also created a network, and I think what I see that sometimes we create a network and we have a lot of enthusiasm at the beginning, and after a few years you start to say, okay, and what is the next step? Because we see the progress are very, very slow, and we all know that, So I think it's good to come back to the basic and to see, okay, why are we going to do with my network? What is the interest of this network? And to make sure that we are not losing time. It's just, to spend time with, to have a drink with people. So that's the reason that I think it's good to go back to the basic and to see, what are the key, I will say, lesson learned and takeaways that we would like to share with you at the end of this session. So we start the masterclass, but in the second chart, you can see that is really the idea that we have with my colleague from Airbus, who is sponsoring this Connecting Hub, is start with really something practical, practical, pragmatical. And so the tip and tricks and led by, all the consultants for Capgemini Consulting. And then, these 2 days, I invited some women who are part of a network and to share their personal experience, because sometimes it's really important to see what is the value of being part of a network and what is the value for a company. Because I am speaking about business network. I am not speaking about, I don't know, network which are on the hobby and so on, but more in the business. You dedicate time, you are paid, you know, to really to work, and you go 2 hours or you go 1 day, 3 days, you know, in a network. So what is the benefit? And that will be the session this afternoon and tomorrow, but I will leave to Marie-Alix to explain what will happen tomorrow, but in Airbus, but and also beyond, you know, the session, this is a platform for all the networks that we are here, you know, in at the Women's Forum. So make sure that even you can, it's your corner. You know, it's not the corner of Lenovo, Airbus or Capgemini Consulting, it is the corner of all the women network here.
That's right, thank you. And our second sponsor of this corner is Airbus with Marie-Alix de l'Estrade.
Hello all. Hello, can you all hear me? Yes, fine. So I am Marie-Alix de l'Estrade from Airbus Group, and I'm very pleased to be here with our partner Lenovo and Capgemini to participate to this connecting hub. Can you hear me? Yeah, fine? Good. So diversity is very important at Airbus Group, because we believe it drives engagement, it drives innovation, and it drives creativity, which is at the heart of our business. We develop cutting-edge technologies that are definitely important for us. So, I mean, diversity is at the heart of the development of our key technologies today. We are here to share with you our experience of our networks, because currently in Airbus we have 9 internal networks, cross-divisional, international, and also based on gender diversity, but all kind of diversity. So we are here to share with you our experience here, but also to learn from you all. So what are your best practices? How do you work within your internal networks? And also to explain further how networks should evolve, because we're trying at Airbus to build on these networks to create one inclusive men and women network. So I thank you all for your contribution and look forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Marie-Alix. So, well, let's deep dive into the wide world of networks with Cécile André, who is a vice president at Capgemini Consulting, and is also a founder of Le Cercle des Femmes Dirigeantes, the network of women which is called the Leading Women's Circle. She's going to present us the findings from our survey.
Thank you. Yeah, just for information, the Leading Women's Circle is the circle of women top managers in France, and there are only 70 top managers, women in France, in large groups. So I thought that was interesting for you, because usually there is no network at this level. So a few information on this survey that we did over the last few days, in a way. A few weeks. Si on peut passer à la page suivante. If you can go to the next page. Yeah. So nearly 400 respondents, mainly women. And this survey was applied to all the networks that we have been active in. Obviously, our company networks, participants, but also, you know, other participants. What we see is that it's quite representative in terms of gender, at least representative of the Women Forum, and quite representative also in terms of age, which you see on the left side, with a large proportion of women who are below 45, and an interesting proportion also of women above 45 who are usually in leading positions. In terms of involvement, we see that only 40% are very involved in networks, and this is already raising a question. So does it mean that it's difficult to find the right networks, or does it mean that networks are not judged useful? We see that in terms of goals, the first goal is to exchange and pass on best practices and expertise, very linked to the fact that women are looking for knowledge, for expertise. Second objective is to promote your career, and third objective is to meet peers. When we look at the results, we see that you could say positive 64% of women and men consider that the network is useful for them, but you could see also the negative side, which is that only 36% of the respondents consider that the network was no help. So then the question is why is that? Why do you have only 2/3 of the people who consider that the network was useful? And then we started digging up and understanding, what they deemed the network useful for. Here you see that the top level response was to capture ideas, to keep informed, which responds to the question that you want to have expertise and you want to have knowledge. The second point was to cultivate professional relationship, and the third one was to make friends, which responds to the point that you want to meet peers. But then what about promoting your career? There is definitely no answer at this level that the network is deemed useful to promote your career. So are the networks, I would say, objectives different from what the women's objectives are, or are the women, I would say, not active enough to make sure that the networks help them? This is a big question. We also ask the respondents on the golden rules to leverage their network. What they say is that you need to give and share content, contacts, you need to be available, and you need to be active on specific topics. On the negative, you should not be self-centered. You should not take advantage of the network to sell your own products or solutions. And you should not overly consult the network members with vague requests. You should need to be very precise in the topics and the requests that you have. So what we see is that there are definitely some tips and tricks that can be leveraged. And the question is, do you leverage them enough? Do you have other tips and tricks? And how can you make sure that your interaction with professional networks is, I would say, wider and more intense than what it is now? And above all, how do you make sure that your involvement lives up to your expectations? So what we will do today, as Candice said, is split you into 3 groups. Each group will be defining according to the topic, 2 questions. What is your objective? What should be your objective if you want to either be an actor of your career path or share best practices or strengthen your potential? And how should you do that? So we want to be very pragmatic, and obviously we will be sharing this with you afterwards.
Do you have any remarks or insights or maybe surprises reading that survey? Is there something that struck you? Okay, so before entering in the frustrating part, which is you have to choose one of those 3 topics to work on, Catherine wanted to add something.
So I would just to welcome also the people we are, on through the internet, because we are doing a live stream of this session. And so we invited our network, so the network of Airbus, network of Lenovo, the network of the Cercle Interrel, with all the 10 companies who are part of the network are here also. So that also is important, because I think the first sign, is to do what we say. And so it means that to make sure we network also with the person who have not the chance to be here today. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so we are already late, so we have to hurry a bit, of course. We're going to make 3 groups. Did you spot already one objective that is more relevant to you? Yes. Okay. How many people do we have for potential of influence? All right. So those people, please go at the back with Maria Alix. Thank you for that. Great. People who want to work on how they best share best practices. So please join Catherine. And the last group with me and Cécile over there. Here. Yes. That's intellectual and physical group. Yes, yes, yes. Just for now. Just for the next few minutes. All right. So, can we get the next chart, please? Okay. So here's the assignment. Imagine that you meet someone, and she wants to get advices on how to leverage her presence in the networks. So she needs advices that are very impactful, ready to use, easy to use, consistent, of course, with her objective. And imagine that she can maybe use those advice even today while leaving that session. So 15 minutes to come up with those best advices. Each of our sponsors in each group have a series of questions that can trigger inspiration. And in 50 minutes, we will share what is worth sharing of those tips and tricks with the grand group. But of course, if you leave us your email, you will be able to get all the productions of the different groups. All right? Okay, let's start. 15 minutes of group discussion. Thank you.
Je pense, ouais. Ouais, à la limite, si j'en filme un, parce qu'elle a une tourne de dos, ce serait mieux.
If you want, you can have the microphone because you're a bigger group, so it may be better. So you can use the headset.
Right, I'm going to give you.
Okay. Do you hear me? Yes. Okay. So I was saying that one possibility is to choose like top management in the area or specialty you're working on, because that's the type of people that can support you to have more influence or take decisions, or can support also that you can have more influence in that area or specialty.
I think we also need to go to the other extreme, and is that if you want to be influential, you need to go down to the students. So being in a network of students that are just studying, that will become the entrepreneurs, that will become the top management later on in the future, that it's important if you want to become influential and you want to use those influential qualities you might have.
By contrast with what you said, I would go to the. You understand? By contrast with what you said, I would take the exterior network to go inside. For example, to go to the foreign networks, to be known in foreign countries, and then come to my own place.
Maybe it's also a feeling of having self-confidence. I mean, if you think that you have really convictions or an area of expertise, maybe you should rather focus on those networks, because you'll be more self-confident, then you will be naturally, I would say, more influential. I don't know what you think about that.
I think it really depends whether we're discussing, do we want to influence the network, or do we want to use the network to influence our life outside the network? So I think your response was more, how do we use the network to then become more influential outside, in which case, in my view, you need to target a network where you are the lowest in the rank, let me say, where you will get in contact with more influential people. If on the other hand, what you're targeting is to influence the actual network itself, then obviously you would go to a network, or at least in my view, of students, of younger people, younger generation, where you can actually leave an imprint, right? So I guess for me the answer is both.
And this raises exactly another question, is about, is it enough to be part of one network, or should you be considering being part of different networks, internally, externally? And also I like the idea of influencing, others, like students, as you say. It's not only influence yourself, but also influence others. And youngest, I think, is quite important here. And it goes along with another question, which is, what role do you really have to play in these networks? So there are two questions here. One is it enough to be part of one network? And the other one, what should be your role?
Hi, I was just going to say, after the last comment, that I would see it being a case of being part of different networks depending on who or what you're trying to influence, and that could change on a project by project basis. So I think it's very important to build networks specific to, if you have a particular target, to build networks specific to that target. In terms of what you do in there, I think you can both learn and gain expertise, but also contribute and give something back to the network, which in turn will increase your level of influence.
I would like to share the view that it's very important to cross networks in areas that are totally unrelated. For example, I'm the general counsel of Capgemini, so I'm in all the legal networks, but I mix them very, very strongly with gender diversity, and I leverage one to get to the other. I created the reunion, the commission of the general counsels of the CAC 40 companies, and when I started Women at Capgemini, I wanted to reach out to the diversity officers. I called all the general counsels, and through that I got the diversity officers. And I think people don't try to mix and match, and I think this is extremely powerful because you catch people in a different context, and generally they are very open to help you. And the second remark I wanted to make, leveraging the age. I do not believe in silos. I like to mix age groups and generation. And a lot of things that we have accomplished is using the older generation and the younger generation and putting them together. And don't think that you should only leverage the new generation. It's also very powerful to leverage the CEO networks because they are the guys that can actually influence down. These are my comments. Anybody?
I agree with that cultural diversity. We have found groups of discussion, which could be networks of discussion between neurology, neuroscience, philosophy, and psychoanalysis. And it's very frustrating for everybody, but everybody can know the other and have new ideas. So I think it is the way we can develop, and it is also the sense of my first what I said before, that to take the foreign people in and to take the people with other culture and then develop the ideas.
Concerning roles, I would say that you can be simply, for beginning, a member in order to analyze what activities exist in the association, and after to engage a process of giving time from yourself to other people, and maybe you can involve yourself in the head of the organization. But what is quite difficult finally is after to promote what you did. I mean, do you perform to promote what you did internally in the association, externally, and that's the point, I think so, I suppose.
Well, I think that for every type of activity that you want to do, even if it's a temporary project, you have first of all to individuate what are the networks which are relevant to you and for what you are doing in that particular moment, and that's important because otherwise you risk to disperse your energy in participating to things which have no relevance whatsoever. And the other thing which is on the role, there is, in my experience, if you don't give, you don't get. So what you need to do is not only participating and observing and absorbing, you need to put yourself up for also doing, even when what you are doing doesn't have an obvious return. So volunteering to be, I don't know, a mentor when talking about women's networks or other kind of networks where your experience can be shared with somebody else and can help somebody else, even if it's not immediately relevant or useful, or can be an outright waste of time, because otherwise you will never be able to influence.
I mean, I would only say, I mean, just act beyond the boundaries. I mean, we are just having templates and how it should be, how it shouldn't be, and am I okay or am I good enough? But I would say we just need to be there, do it, and just execute.
And I think both comments just lead to another question, which is about execution. How much time do you need to dedicate to these networking sessions? Because we all have busy jobs, and sometimes it's hard to dedicate as much time as we would like, or to mentor, or to be mentored, but also to participate to network. So what are your views on this?
Well, I think that it is actually part of your job. So it's the only way to take it, because otherwise there's not enough time in the day. So either you make it part of your job or part of your pleasure. It's the only choice. Normally a bit of both. So if it's a network that is bringing you some joy in terms of you have fun and you enjoy the people, then probably you will take the time out of your own personal time to be there. But I think it all boils down to how much value you get out of it, and in different times you get different value, so therefore it doesn't matter. I mean, you don't need to feel guilty, and that's the worst thing, at least my experience is, when you start to feel guilty because you're not participating, then something's wrong, because it becomes a burden instead of a satisfaction. And to your earlier point, you stop wanting to give because you feel you're not getting anything in exchange. So I think in terms of time, I don't think it needs a lot of time, but I think it needs a lot of focus. I don't know how to say it, a space in your brain, right? The way you say, okay, maybe this month I'm only going to dedicate 2 hours, but it needs to be either 2 hours where you're having fun or 2 hours where you're getting something from a business standpoint. And then for sure, it's not an effort to cut out the time out of your personal life or out of your work life.
Well, I think it takes time. So we need to be honest with ourselves. It's not something that comes without a price. And I think that the part of it, you need to make your environment aware that this is not something that you are doing for yourself, because sometimes this participating to network in the working environment is perceived as basically doing something for yourself, or even worse, doing nothing or playing. And people would, your bosses, of course, but also your team, they need to understand that what you are doing not for selfishly for yourself, but you are doing to become a better and more effective leader if you are in a leader position, or to increase your possibilities of moving up the ladder if you are not yet in a leading position. So you have to make who is around you in your working environment understanding why you are participating to certain networks.
I guess for me, one point that I wanted to raise was that as women, how are we penetrating the bigger network, specifically also the male network? Because unfortunately, in the real world, it's not just us. And for us to influence, to move up in organizations, society, we do need to influence a wider audience, and most of it is men. So, I just think that, I think someone did say that, the networks are sort of like multiple, and I think we need to be versatile enough and adaptive enough to be able to penetrate those networks that may not even be comfortable, but we'll have to do that in order for us to have the influence that we want to have.
Thank you so much for your comments. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, and I need to already conclude this session. And is there any volunteer here in the room to present the key topics that we have raised? Who would like to try? No? Okay, so no volunteer.
No, I think there's volunteer.
Yeah? If we don't have a volunteer, I will do the exercise. But I think it's great if it comes from the audience than from me. But I'm happy to do it. But really, I would be glad.
Okay, she'll do it.
Sure, you've been appointed. Great.
I have captured the main takeaways from this session. So maybe if you agree, I'm going to collect your business cards and then I'm going to send you the restitutions. That's quite interesting. And for our dear volunteer, I've written down like 3 or 4 main ideas if you're interested in reading them.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. So please get your headset back. And we're going to start sharing for the last 10 minutes of this session. Okay, so we're going to share the group work.
I trust the consultants. You guys can stay sitting because we're going to share the rest of the group. So.
Okay, ladies, we have to finish the group discussion and start the sharing.
Okay, on y va. Done. Perfect.
Okay, so can you all get your headset back so you can hear me?
Okay. Oui.
Donc après on fait une conclusion, c'est ça? Oui. C'est nous aussi? Ou non? Ça, je rappelle. Enfin, oui.
All right, please.
Mesdames, s'il vous plaît, sinon on va prendre du retard.
All right, so I thought that the group were very productive. So we had a first group. Can we go back on the... Aurélie, est-ce que tu peux mettre les groupes, s'il te plaît? Thank you. Okay, so we had a group, which was the bigger one, on potential of influence. Oh, she needs to meet. Okay, right. So we had another group, which was on sharing best practices with Catherine. Who's reporting out for the group?
So our group will be report. The results will be reported by our colleague from Sanofi, who is leading the Women Network in Sanofi. This is great.
Thank you. So the group had a really great discussion about a number of different areas, and some of the key things that we identified as far as some needs or levels of success is certainly really defining clearly what the vision, the objectives, kind of the approach and the strategy is. Because I think at first there's so much that we want to do, and rather than really diluting the impact potentially, to really focus in on a core few key things to get some traction, some results to be able to take back to the organization, has certainly worked successfully for us as well as others in the group. So I think really outlining specifically that specific agenda, what you want to accomplish, the objectives, and the vision is really critical. I think one of the other components we talked about was just how do you organize? What does that look like? And think about it as a piece of the business. And building the right level of structure to really support the level of focus or objectives that you have established. What's the cadence that you want to have? So a regular setup from a meeting standpoint, whether that's monthly, every 6 weeks, having established group of a leadership team that could really take you through that journey to help achieve those specific objectives, but really thinking about it just like a piece of the business. And the third component was an opportunity to assess the members. And we actually have a database that we've built so that as folks become a member of the network, We know who they are, where they are, kind of what their skills or expertise is, as well as what their reason for being a member and their level of involvement that they want to have, so that we can really tap people who want to volunteer and do more, and we can pull in people who are looking to build upon a specific skill, or if they're trying to gain a piece of knowledge, that we can kind of pull them in the right way. And then the final piece was around probably one of the biggest challenges, because all of this, I think most of us, it's not our day job typically. So there certainly is a challenge to really identify and motivate folks for leadership roles, because I think we see at times that it comes down to a small few that do the lion's share of. So how do we really challenge ourselves to look for new ways to continue to motivate and bring others along into leadership roles, kind of build the bench, if you will, around individuals that can take on those roles when the individuals in them, can move on and so forth.
A bit of applause. Thank you very much. That was the group about sharing best practices and learning from other experience. We had a group on being an actor of my career path.
We focused on how do we leverage the networks to enhance our careers or to find the new opportunities. And I think that there were a few very interesting points, and I would agree with setting the purpose, understanding why you're joining certain networks and so forth. And I think to share in 3 minutes are some of the practical pieces, how to do it. So maybe we can share also with one experience here. So what we were discussing is that there are men networks and then there are women networks. Does it make sense to keep them separate, or should you be exclusive to only one type of networks, or maybe go in between, join multiple networks and leverage them both? And I think this was an interesting point as you go further up in your career, the networks, because of the representation, may be male only at that point. So make sure that you don't exclusively just go into one or the other. The other piece was, how do you join a network? Maybe it's finding somebody that's influential in that network and developing a mentor-mentee relationship with that person. And that could be one of the ways to get in or step in, and how to do that practically, maybe through finding a common ground with that mentor, finding a common topic of interest with the senior executive or whoever is influential in the network. And I think another piece was around, if you don't have a network around, if you don't see the network of power that's important, create one, right? And we have Stephanie that has experience in creating one recently. So maybe Stephanie, if you can share a quick word. And a quick...
So very quickly, thank you very much. My name is Stephanie. So I created the Women's Business Society in Geneva, Switzerland 2 years ago with 3 other women. And the reason why we created that network is because we first looked around us in the Geneva area, and it looked like there was no network for young women really interested in their career and in promoting their career. So this is why we created that network, and we are now very happy. It's very new, and we hope it will continue. So I'm happy to share further if you're interested.
Let me just close it. One key insight I think we discussed also was that try to join the networks early on, not only when you have a dire need or wish to solve some issue, but try to join those networks early on to get experience how to do it and contribute to that network as well.
Just as a reminder, if you let us your email, we will be able to send you all the production and the outposts for the group. Okay, for the last group, potential of influence.
Okay, very quick. I think we've got no time left. So we discussed around the type of networks that we should join, and actually there was no consensus, which was the interesting thing, right? So we concluded that depending on what you're trying to achieve, you probably need to target different networks and multiple networks. And we talked about management networks, we talked about student networks, and a very interesting idea came up around mixing the networks and the value of cross fertilization between different networks, and how you can leverage one network into another network. And we've got some examples down there at the back. Another area we discussed also is around the give to get. The concept of network is how do you obtain value out of the network, and you need to put value into the network before you get value out of the network, or at the same time at least. Then around how much time do you dedicate to networks, it was related to first of all, getting rid of the sense of guilt of dedicating time to that, but also very importantly, you need to be able to convey the message that it's not a self-centered thing. It's not only a selfish thing, which that too, but it's not only about yourself. It's about developing yourself to also help others, and your environment needs to understand that when you're dedicating time to networks, it's not only a selfish investment. And then the last idea was around the fact that it should not be only around women networks, but it's so important to also get yourself into, let's say, I wouldn't say male networks, but mixed networks, because otherwise it becomes a lot less enriching. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. So we will send you all the production of this day. Also, for Capgemini, with the Capgemini team, we will do a study, a point of view on networks and how to leverage networks based on this session, but also on the 2 following sessions, which are happening today at the end of this afternoon and tomorrow morning. For my part, thank you all. It has been very rich, and thank you for all the involvement you got working on those different issues. I'll let the last word for our sponsors.
Thank you, Candice. So, thanks a lot for your contribution. So I think what I would like really to you is really also to spread out, the words regarding the value and the importance of the network. So the next session is 5:45, when we will share the personal story and the experience about, the value of the network for a company. And I think, and tomorrow, of course, the network and diversity and competitiveness with Airbus. And for those who are part of a network, I think it's really great that if you leave your business card and you leave the name of the network, because we want now to create also, we can have a network, with all the person interested by that and sharing best practices. Thank you.
Marie-Alex?
Just one last word to finish. Then tomorrow's session for Airbus Group will be about driving diversity for competitiveness, where we will have the chance to have our delegates presenting their experience, and also some external people coming to share with us how they work and how they experience their networks as well. So thank you so much for all these hints and for sharing with us your tips, and looking forward to seeing you.
Thank you. Have a good day.